Hey guys, so this week's focus is decimals. Now, it doesn't look like decimals that's on this board right now, but hang in there. We have Dragon Ball characters. So we have different forms of Vegeta and little Goku, another little Goku. This is Goku in a Saiyan, like Super Saiyan 1 or 2, and Majin Buu. Okay, so I have these Dragon Ball characters, and then I have 5 actual dragon toys right over here. Alright, so we're saying it seems like an even match because we have 5 here and 5 here, but these Dragon Ball characters are much stronger than our dragons. So even though the amount of characters are the same on each side, this side, the Dragon Ball side, is going to win because they are
yes, ma'am.
much stronger. They're worth more battle experience than these dragons. Okay? So hang on just a second. We're going to switch this to math. Alright, so even though we were working with Dragon Ball and dragons, comparing decimals is not much different. So let's kind of rename these Dragon Ball characters and dragons. So instead of saying these are 2 Dragon Ball characters, we're going to call these 2/10. 2/10. These dragons, we're going to call them not dragons, we're going to call them hundredths. So I'm changing the unit. When I say unit, that is the size of the thing we're counting. So this one of these is going to be smaller than one of these. Okay? So these are stronger than these. So this is worth more combat damage than the dragon's combat damage. Even though it's 2 and 2, the worth of one of these, of the unit, is more. Okay? So let's represent these a few ways. We can represent these by saying fractions like we did last week. So 2 hundredths. Remember, this word right here is the same as our denominator. It means represents the same thing. And this is 2/10. Means the same thing. Our denominator, that's the bottom of our fraction, means the same thing as this unit right here. Okay? Another way we could represent this, and this is what we're working on today, is decimal form. So we're going to say this right here is 2 hundredths, and hang in there, we're going to show how I got that. And this right here is represented this way in decimal form, 2/10. So all of this means the same thing. And we can show that these dragons, or we're calling them hundredths now, is less than 2 of these Dragon Ball characters, which we're calling them tenths. So 2 hundredths is less than 2/10. 2 hundredths is less than 2/10. 2 hundredths is less than 2/10. All of that, all those equations, those expressions mean the same thing. Alright, so let's erase this using that idea where our focus is the unit, the type of unit we're talking about, instead of just looking at them as just numbers. random numbers. I want you to look at this week's practice. So if you look at number 1, now I have the other pages. This is the first page. Number 1 has a 0.2 and a 0.5. We've got to ask ourselves, what unit are we counting? So we're thinking, to what? So I see a decimal point right here. So that decimal point means that to the right of it is tenths. It's getting smaller than even a whole number. To the left is our whole numbers. So to show this, I'm going to get out my trusty place value chart. Here's my decimal point here. So our first one said 0.2. So when I write my numbers on my place value chart, I use that decimal point to help me place the digits where they're supposed to be. So that 2 was right after the decimal, to the right of that decimal point. That 0 was to the left. Now from the beginning of the year and from prior grades, we know as we go left in our place value chart, we are getting bigger with the size of our units. To the right, as I go right, I'm getting smaller with the size of my units. So this number means that this digit means that it's going to be worth smaller than this digit because it's to the right. To the right, everything to the left of that decimal point means that it's a whole number. So anything I write here, that's the place value chart that we're used to. We're used to not having that decimal point. Everything here is whole numbers. That's like me eating a whole pizza, a whole candy bar. To the right of that decimal point, these right here, these place value units right here are smaller than one whole thing. So if I say I ate 2/10 of a pizza, I did not eat the whole pizza. I ate a part, a fraction of a pizza. My next number was 0.5. So that 0 was to the left of the decimal. That 5 was directly after the decimal to the right. So this 2 and this 5 is in my tenths place. Both of them. They're in a common unit. So I can compare them. 2 of these is less than 5 of these. So that would be me saying 2 of these is less than if I have 5 of the same type. I cannot compare them by saying 2 of these is less than 5 of these. They're different. They're worth different amounts. So we would say that 2, now this 2 is counting tenths. Remember with our place value chart, 2/10. That digit right after the decimal place is tenths. So we would not say, don't say 0.2. The mathematician way is to say 2 and then what unit we're in, tenths, is less than 5/10. So we would show that using that symbol. Now let's look at this one. This is your second page. uh-oh, I have 2 digits after my decimal point. So I'm going to look, I'm going to erase this. Here's my decimal point. So number 1 on the second page. I have 3 right after the decimal point. So we're going to call that 3/10. That 3 is counting the unit tenths. And 5 hundredths. My other value was 2/10 and 5 hundredths. Okay, so now let's compare them. Nothing has changed in our place value thinking. When we compare to see which one's bigger, you would have told me in class that, oh, we look at the largest unit shown. Well, this is not the largest unit. That's to the right. The unit that is all the way to the left is our tenths place. So 3/10 is greater than 2/10. So this number is the greater number. That way of thinking has not changed no matter where we go on this place value chart. We could go all the way even past here or even past here. And it's the same thinking. Nothing is new. So we'd say 3/10 is greater than 2/10. Now think about how you would say this number if I just went in standard form. I see 3/10 and 5 hundredths. 3/10, 5 hundredths. Well, I want to say this together. If I wrote this number here, you would say, oh, Miss Olson, that means 35. Well, I would say the same thing here. I would see it together, 35, but I wouldn't say 35/10. I would say 35, wherever it landed, hundredths. 25 hundredths. So we would say 35 hundredths is greater than 25 hundredths. All right. So let's look at this one. It seems like I would think, oh, that 3 and 5, there's 2 digits after the decimal point. So I think this value is greater than this value because that only has a single digit. But I'm not going to trust what I'm thinking. I'm going to use my place value chart to figure this out. So it had a decimal point. The digit right after your decimal point, we call that the tenths place. And the digit after the 10th place is in your hundredths place. The other second value, here's our decimal point. 4 is after the decimal point, so we would say 4/10, and there was nothing after it. So just like our rules before, if I had a 4 in my tens place, my whole number side, well, there would be a placeholder 0 here. There's a placeholder 0 here, placeholder 0 here. Nothing's changed. Every place value that is not filled up with a digit has a placeholder 0. So I could see it like that. So I have 35 hundredths compared to 40 hundredths. That's one way of saying it. Or I could go and look at just my tenths because that is the largest unit shown. 3/10 is less than 4/10. And we're ignoring the rest of my smaller units. So even though this is 2 digits after the decimal point, doesn't mean that it's bigger or greater. This is actually less than because this only has 3/10. This has made it all the way to 4/10. Okay? So let's look at the application. number 1. Billy has, oh, I see 56, and it ends on that hundredths place, so we would say 56 hundredths of a dollar, so not even a whole dollar yet in his pocket. Jesse has 6/10ths of a dollar in his pocket. Who has a greater amount of money in his pocket? So let's think about this. Here's Billy, and there's Jesse. Now we're comparing their values because of this word right here, who has greater. That's a comparison. So Billy has this amount. Jesse has this amount. This is what they are telling us. Now I've got to make it to where it's easy to compare. For me, it's easier to compare if I have a place value chart and I make everything in digits instead of seeing this way. Okay, so I'm going to erase Jesse's value. It says 6/10ths. So I'm going to do my place value chart over my numbers. To the left of our decimals are whole numbers. So this is ones. To the right of my decimal, that's when we start our smaller than 1 values. So we could say this is tenths. And I can show in decimal form like this. That's my unit. Or I can show my fraction, unit fraction like this. Okay, so I have 5 of these. So we have 5/10ths. Oh wait, that's sounds a lot like what they said Jesse had. Jesse has 6/10ths. So now I'm in my tenths place. It tells us how many tenths, so I'm going to put 6 here. Bring down my decimal to show that we're smaller than 1. Placeholder zeros. Now I can see that Jesse's value has more tenths than Billy's value. So we can say that Jesse has more money than Billy's. I can show it in decimal form by saying Jesse's 6/10ths is greater than Billy's 56 hundredths. Okay, so that was number 1. As you go through this, make sure that you're checking your work using place value. Labels this if it's an application problem, that helps. And you can always draw a model like we've done before to get you started. But that place value chart is going to help you make sense of this new concept of decimals and use a tool that you already know, which is that place value language. Okay, so Goku is going to say bye, and the dragon has now made friends with him and says, you're stronger than me, so yeah. All right, see y'all later, guys. We miss y'all, and if you have any issues, if you have any problems, or just want to say hi, you can comment at the bottom of this video, or you can send a message to either myself or Miss Britt, and we will love to help you. 5th grade is full of decimals, so this is something that we really need to make sure you are understanding. So feel free to reach out to us if you need to, or if you just want to. All right, guys. Hope y'all are staying safe, and we miss you. Bye.